I was talking to Keenan a couple weeks ago, and he pointed out to me that Richmond's been garnering a lot of national attention as sort of a hub for the protests right now. And it was distracted a little bit with the Chaz Chop in Seattle. Diverted a little attention away, but I think we're going to see Richmond get some more mentions. It's harder to tell, for me anyway, being from around Richmond, having a lot of friends in Richmond. When I see an article shared about Richmond, it doesn't occur to me that this is necessarily a national news source. You know, like the New York Times or the Washington Post or MSNBC or Fox. You know, I always think that it's like I guess in my mind, it would be like seeing a story about Richmond from WTVR, like the local news station. But, you know, I've been seeing a lot of videos from my friends and coworkers, old coworkers, that are, you know, taking pictures and live streaming while they're marching. And you got to understand, you know, I grew up outside of Richmond in a pretty conservative family. I mean, the political dynamic of my family is definitely skewed farther left in the last 10 years. But growing up, it was, you know, a pretty conservative household and pretty conservative extended family also. And I'd frequently hear a pretty common criticism amongst conservatives that Democrats make promises they never plan to keep because then they'd have nothing left to run on. You know, Medicare for all, better affirmative action policies, protections for Black or Hispanic people. Always promises that never get followed through. And you hear conservatives say this a lot about Democrats, but you get the same things from Republicans too. If you look at Republican Congress people, they don't follow through on their promises either. Like, sure, they can put pro-life on their website and do nothing that would indicate that that's a position they really take. Sure, they can put pro-gun on, you know, as part of their campaign flyers, but there's nothing to indicate that they believe the Second Amendment has some level of sanctity. I definitely see it, and I know that however many of my liberal friends that listen to this are already laughing at me because this is exactly what they've been saying to me for some time now. Certainly. And, you know, I only ever believed it until I figured it out for myself, right? So I guess that makes me an asshole. I already was an asshole. But no, so one thing that does kind of bother me, though, you know, you look at Richmond, a city that is majority Black, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's like it's over 50%. Last I checked, it was like 55 or 56% Black in Richmond. And I know myself, a conservative, I think that the statues of Confederate generals and leaders should absolutely be taken down. I would be willing to entertain an argument around Robert E. Lee, being loyal to his state. He was offered a top general position in the Union Army as well. And like I said, I'd be willing to entertain the argument. I don't know that I'd be inclined to agree with it, but I'd be open to a civil discussion about it. But the rest of them can absolutely go. So there's nothing stopping you from voting to take these statues down, right? And yet, the statues don't start coming down until protesters just start tearing them down. That something about this doesn't seem right to me. And here's the thing, right? There was a primary on Monday. Did you go vote? Or how about any of you marching to protest? Did you vote for the last time LeVar Stoney was up for election? Did you go vote, or did you have work that day? Oh my gosh, was that today? Oh geez. Well, none of these candidates really represent me, Like who would I vote for, huh? Like, and I'm saying this slightly in jest, but seriously though, did you go and vote? And I would say no, this isn't just targeted at protesters. This is you too, conservatives. No, actually, no, I take that back. It is especially you also, conservatives. And I'll get to you in a minute. But no, how can you march through the city demanding police reform, demanding to defund the police, spray painting, busting windows, tearing down statues? How are you going to go and do all of that, but you can't be bothered to hop in your car, drive up the street, wait in a line? Even for presidential elections, those are not long lines. Even if it is like an hour, your boss cannot fire you for this, by the way. Like you have to be given time to go and vote. So do it. But do not tell me that the only way that we can get this change is by getting some F-150s and some heavy chains. No, there are so many ways. I mean, it wouldn't look as good for an Instagram photo op. I will definitely give you that. I've personally really liked the pictures. And the same goes for the conservatives that are sitting back and complaining, oh, this is madness, this is anarchy. They really need to crack down on this. No. Protesting is like the most American thing. It's like the most American thing you can do. That and owning and regularly shooting an AR-15. They're neck and neck, but right now protesting is definitely number one. How in the world can you sit here and complain that the government isn't doing enough to stifle people's rights when you cannot be bothered to participate in the process? Now I understand it's just a primary. Doesn't matter. It's part of a whole process. I went and voted in the primary on Monday. You know what they told me? Was less than 100 people showed up. In a town of like where I'm at, where I voted, this town, it's only like 5,000 people. So you mean to tell me less than 100 people participated? And yet that everybody that I run into, everybody I talk to here, all have an opinion. They all have an opinion. And being that it's a rural community, they feel pretty negatively about the protests. So how are those people not going to show up to vote? Because like I said, this is just across the board. If you're out there protesting and you didn't vote, fuck you. And if you're out here complaining about it, fuck you too. If you couldn't be bothered. But that being said, at least the protesters showed up. They got in their cars, they drove, they met up at a particular time. They said, we're gonna walk, we're gonna block the road, and we're gonna walk from here to here, and we're gonna make sure that everybody who drives by figures out what we're on about. And at least they did that. But the people who don't like seeing statues torn down, the people who like Christopher Columbus, where were they? What were you doing? Oh, we were busy at work. Yeah, believe it or not, these people have jobs too. You're saying that you're too busy being involved in the system to protect the system that you seem to like so much. That doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. If you like Christopher Columbus, if you like Ulysses S. Grant, if you like Teddy Roosevelt, then show up with flyers. You make little pamphlets, hand them out to people. The history of Christopher Columbus was written by all this negative history stuff came from his chief political rival. That would be like in 500 years reading the history of Hillary Clinton as written by Donald Trump. Oh, Ulysses S. Grant. Yes, he was a flawed person, like all persons. But he fought to end the Confederacy and free the slaves because he thought that slave holding was detestable. He thought it was gross. You could hand out those pamphlets. You could tell people that. But no, instead you're just going to sit back and complain and then again, not even vote. So yeah, I mean, people protesting, they're doing the most American thing in the world. Whether you agree with them or not, they have a right to be there. Which means that if you disagree with them, you kind of have a responsibility to also show up. Say, hey, we disagree too. But no, they're perfectly complacent, saying, well, the police should handle it. No, the politicians and the police. And it's like, dude, yeah, so what you're saying is you have no interest in standing up for yourself. Well, congratulations. You already lost. Can you tell I've been pretty frustrated recently? Can you tell I need an outlet? Anyway, thanks for listening.